The Forgotten Cabin. It was a bright, crisp morning when Miss Crawford and her class boarded the bus for their overnight trip to Bear Ridge Nature Reserve. The kids were excited about hikes, bonfires, and ghost stories, completely unaware that they would soon live a story of their own. The reserve was deep in the woods, and by the time they arrived, the sun was already low in the sky. The group gathered around the camp guide, Mr. Foster, who handed out maps and assigned cabins. 4 rustic log cabins stood clustered near a clearing, but one stood further away, half hidden by overgrown bushes and trailing vines. "What about that one?" asked Mia, a curious and bold girl with a knack for finding trouble. Mr. Foster glanced toward the cabin, his cheerful demeanor flickering. "That one's off limits," he said quickly. "We don't use it anymore. It's unstable." The kids exchanged glances, their imaginations running wild. Jake, the class clown, smirked. "Unstable? Like haunted unstable?" Miss Crawford shot him a warning look, but it was too late. The idea of a haunted cabin spread like wildfire. By the time they sat around the campfire that night, the kids had already woven tales of vengeful spirits and ghostly children who vanished into the woods. "You wouldn't last 5 minutes in there," Jake teased Lucas, who was trying to avoid attention. "Bet you were too scared," Mia added with a grin. "I'm not scared." Lucas shot back, his pride wounded. "Prove it," said Anna, the quiet one of the group, her voice barely audible over the crackling fire. The challenge was set. Jake, Mia, Anna, and Lucas crept away from the campfire while the others sang songs and roasted marshmallows. Flashlights in hand, they approached the shadowy cabin. The air grew colder with every step, and the forest seemed unnaturally quiet, as if holding its breath. The cabin loomed before them, its wooden planks warped and gray with age. Ivy clung to the walls like skeletal fingers. Jake pushed the door, which groaned open with a long, mournful creak. Inside, the air was thick and musty. Dust hung in the beams of their flashlights, and cobwebs draped the corners like curtains. The room was cluttered with broken furniture and scattered papers. "This isn't so bad," Jake said, his voice shaky despite his bravado. Anna wandered to the corner and picked up a yellowed photograph lying face down on the floor. It showed a group of children smiling in front of the very same cabin. "Look at this," she said, holding it up. Lucas squinted at the photo. "What's wrong with that kid's face?" he asked. One of the children in the photo, front and center, had their face violently scratched out, as if by claws. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from upstairs. Mia froze, her flashlight trembling. Did you hear that?" "Wind," Jake said, his voice cracking. "It's probably just." The sound came again, louder this time, followed by a slow creak, like someone walking across the floor above them. "Let's just go," Lucas whispered, edging toward the door. But Mia, always the fearless one, said, "No way. We came here to explore, so we're exploring." Against their better judgment, the group climbed the rickety staircase, which groaned under their weight. The upstairs hallway was narrow and dark, lined with closed doors. A faint, rhythmic creak echoed from the end of the hall. A single door stood ajar, revealing a small room with a rocking chair swaying gently in the middle. "Nope," Lucas muttered, turning back. But the door behind them slammed shut, and their flashlights flickered out. The room plunged into darkness. A low, raspy whisper filled the air. "You shouldn't be here." The group screamed, scrambling for the door, but it wouldn't budge. Something brushed against Mia's arm, cold and clammy, like dead flesh. She gasped, backing into Lucas, who was fumbling with the doorknob. Jake shouted, "Who's there?" The whispers grew louder, overlapping and echoing until they were deafening. Shadows moved in the darkness, swirling like smoke. The pressure in the room was unbearable, as if the walls were closing in. Finally, the door flew open, and they tumbled out, their flashlights sparking back to life. They bolted down the stairs and out of the cabin, not daring to look back. When they reached the campfire, panting and pale, they tried to explain what had happened. But Miss Crawford and Mr. Foster just stared at them, confused. "What cabin?" Miss Crawford asked. Mia turned to point, but the clearing where the cabin had stood was empty. The next morning, the group packed up to leave. When they returned to their cabins to grab their bags, each of them found a photo on their bed. It was the same photo Anna had picked up in the cabin, except now their faces were scratched out.